Macmillan Audio presents The Power of Different, The Link Between Disorder and Genius by Gail Saltz, MD. Read for you by the author.
Introduction. I spent so many years wanting him to succeed and wanting him to be happy. Noah, the father of Ethan, a 16-year-old who had been diagnosed as a young child with ADD and Asperger's, said to me once. With those words, he was articulating the desires all parents have for their children, to be happy and to succeed. Those goals, while so simple sounding, can be difficult to achieve for anyone. But for children and adults with diagnosed brain differences, the path can be even more perilous and uneven. In the early years of Ethan's schooling, his personal challenges emerged as behavioral difficulties. There seemed to be a disconnect between Ethan's intellectual brightness and his inability to control himself physically and to engage socially in appropriate ways. Ethan himself remembers jumping around in classes. I might throw tantrums. The usual not knowing when to be quiet, basically behavioral issues that made it hard for me to work with teachers. Teachers would often have to take too much time to deal with me, and sometimes I would crawl under the table and read and ignore them. Noah describes Ethan as having lacked a filter. This disconnect within Ethan is one that parents and educators are often forced to grapple with. What to do with a child who has intellectual gifts but behavioral challenges? Often, these are children who lack what is called executive function. That is, the ability to contain their emotional and behavioral impulses. A special education environment can eliminate the stress of having to conform to the standards of a crowded mainstream classroom, but it can be educationally uninspiring for a bright child. Noah chose to place Ethan in a special environment to deal with the behavioral aspects of his difficulties. After all, if a child can't sit still and pay attention, a child can't exercise his or her intellectual gifts. Eventually, via a combination of maturing communication skills, his own remarkable perseverance, and judiciously prescribed Adderall for his ADD, Ethan decided that he was ready to get out of the protected environment of his special school and put himself in the much more academically rigorous environment of one of Manhattan's most competitive public schools. This was not the recommendation of the special school that he attended. Educators there believed that once a student was categorized as having a particular problem, then he or she would always need extra help for that problem. They felt Ethan would flounder if he didn't receive that special attention. It's not that they didn't think well of Ethan as a student. They did. But they failed to see that their labeling of Ethan had also become limiting. They did not recognize he developed the strengths, skills, and tenacity to succeed elsewhere. Noah says, "There's something in Ethan's nature to be very curious and inquisitive, very friendly, bright, and creative. And when the conditions are right, extremely hardworking and very generous. A lot of those aspects of him must have helped him to become more self-aware." Entirely of his own volition, Ethan applied himself to studying for the New York City Specialized High School exam. Noah says, "For a couple of summers he would take the train every day out to Flushing for test prep classes. It totally came from him." It's remarkable to consider that this level of discipline existed in the same child who had once been considered a disruption in mainstream classes. Ethan describes his drive to enter a mainstream high school as coming from a fear for my future and wanting to do more. His father says Ethan became extremely focused on proving everyone wrong by not only getting into a specialized high school, but getting into exactly the one he wanted to attend. He sought some advice from us, but really he only wanted support, which we gave him absolutely.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?